Hello, math application students. We are going to do day 19 right now, which is on quadratic functions. So this application problem, example 1, is from page 212, number 66. First thing we're going to do is determine the profit function for the given revenue and cost, then determine the break-even points. So a quick note here, and I have it in the nice box here. Profit really equals your revenue subtracting your cost. So hopefully that makes sense. It's what you get from your customers minus what you have to pay for is what the money is that goes to you. Another term you want to remember is break even. I'm going to write it in the same box. So break even really means when your profit is 0. So I haven't made anything, I haven't lost anything, I kind of broke even with my function. So let's start here. I am given both the revenue and the cost function. This one's revenue, this one's cost. So for profit is going to equal, and I'll even use the function notation, profit is going to equal your revenue subtracting your cost. So that means revenue is really x times 210 minus 0.25x. And I got that just from right here. I'm replacing my revenue into my function. And then I'm subtracting my cost, 78x plus 6,399. Notice I put parentheses here because the biggest mistake students make is they forget to distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in red, really make sure we understand that idea. I am subtracting the entire cost function. At the same time, I can really distribute these x's too, right? They're right next to each other. So I'll have 210x minus 0.25. This becomes x squared now when I multiply x. Subtract 78x and then subtract 6,399. Let's clean up this function. Everything in this chapter is about quadratics. So if I clean it up, I'm going to put my x squared term first. I'm going to combine my two functions that have x, my two terms, that have x to get positive 132. And then my c value. So here is my profit function. I took my revenue and subtracted the cost. That's what the first part of this problem wants. Now the second part is the break even, so that's this part right here, when profit equals 0. So if I'm doing break even now, it means profit equals 0. So taking the function that we just found, the new idea is that this will be 0. Hopefully this looks familiar now, maybe last chapter. This is a quadratic that's equal to 0. So you can try to factor it. You can try quadratic formula, split the middle, all these factoring options that we had from last chapter. You decide what works best. I'm going to choose quadratic formula. So here's my A, B, and C. And I'm going to plug in and see what my answers will be. So negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times my a value times my c value. All over 2 times my a value. I'm going to clean up what's underneath that square root. That's where most of the problems happen. So if I simplify this, I should be getting 11,025. So make sure you're able to get that number. That's usually where the trouble happens, is simplifying what's called the discriminant. So make sure you can get to there. And actually, that number is a perfect square. 132 plus or minus, it becomes 105 actually. So it just makes our life a little bit easier. When you make your first function, I keep saying the word function, guys. If you make your first equation, this one has a plus sign. And then the next one would have the subtraction sign. So now you just need to go through and solve those. One thing, if you remember anything about quadratic formula, is you want to simplify the numerators first. That means add together negative 132 and 105. You should get negative 27. Then divide it by negative 0.5. So I'm getting 54. Again, for this one, simplify the numerator. So negative should be 237 divided by negative 0.5, and you would get 474. So those would be the points, these two answers, that if I sold these many items, whatever it might be, I would break even. That means I wouldn't lose any money, I wouldn't gain any money, my profit would be 0. So that is day 19 for you. You'll see a homework problem that looks very similar. Again, watch out to make sure you distribute in your profit function and make sure you simplify your discriminant. If you have questions, please bring them to class.